But all right, let's get into this 21 Savage Club Shay Shay interview. So shout out to Club Shay Shay. You've been knocking it out the park.
Club Shay Shay has been putting out some good stuff. I watched
ever since you got the fireplace. His shit been went up.
Okay, so listen. I don't want y'all to think that we try to to copy Club Shay Shay, because we are eventually in the next couple weeks going to revamp our set. We're going to have a couple different sets. Two of the sets actually are going to include fireplaces. That's just us. That's not us trying to bite.
Trying to jack his Steve-O. But no, it's since that's happened, that's when Steve Harvey came, when he got the fireplace. I was doing my little due diligence through his little track record, because it first started with him talking
the brown
to
couches.
Yeah, it first started with him.
It looks like a bourbon room. It looks very like man cave.
It started out with him doing video chats, because it happened during the pandemic, and then he started doing it in person, and then this is when the set happened.
So those video chats that I saw with him and
there's a lot of different people.
Ocho Cinco?
No, that's his new show.
Okay. They're funny together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I said. That's why
Ocho Cinco was like cognac.
That's why I had to give a shout out to Shannon. I seen a lot of people hating on you, Shannon, because you are doing a partnership with The Volume, and that's another white man, Colin Cowherd's show. Mm-hmm. And shout out to him, because he is the black man's Kelsey Grammer. He is. He knows black men. If you look at he got a whole bunch of black people on his network, and they are doing good content.
Okay, good.
But I seen a lot of people hating on Shannon. But Shannon, I know I called you a check nigga before. I don't believe you are anymore. I hope not. Hope you are a nigga working in big business. But shout out to you and what you're doing. But this 21 Savage interview was pretty interesting. I learned a lot about him. He did talk about some things that he had talked about before, like in his Breakfast Club interview. Mm-hmm. So the big takeaway was, he said he felt like broke parents were better than rich parents, and it just came down to time.
Okay.
Why. And
it depends on how broke, though.
No, I hate when people say that, because
broke people don't be having time either. I had broke immigrant parents, and they had nothing. All of their time had to be spent making money.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted to lead to, was like, I don't like that point that he was saying, because it really misconstrues what's important. And what's important is, yes, you do need finances, but you need to have enough resources while also being able to have time to be with your kids.
Yeah.
Like, we were talking about this in our group chat, kind of trying to explain to the guys in the group chat that don't have kids what's going on. And they were saying like these different little comebacks, and I had to stop them and say, bro, you're thinking about this entirely too business related. You're trying to think of it like a CEO, and I'm telling you, you got to think about this like, what's better for your worker and humanity. And what's better for your worker humanity is that my homeboy that was talking about it gets paid the same amount he's getting paid by work, and still work less, so that he can be around his kids and be around his family. Like, that's what's important. That's the thing I was talking about prior, was like, we aren't conducive to parenting. Like, it shouldn't be a reason why someone is a parent and still have to work 40 hours a week.
No, yeah.
Like,
those
two things, like,
my worst nightmare.
You're doing you're disenfranchising of people when you do that. Like, you're doing people a disservice when you do that, because now they can't focus on being with the kid, and now they have to take certain setbacks to either, are we going to provide, or am I going to be a ever-present force? And it kind of even comes into some of the criticism with his father, which was kind of tough for me. He was saying, like, his dad was in the UK, and he didn't really see him much growing up, because of, just the difference, the whole being all the way across the ocean.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine trying to parent across a whole Atlantic Ocean. That's tough.
You can't. If you're in a different country, you can't parent. There's only so much you can, like, you can try to do a couple calls, give them a couple lessons, but, like, I'm not about to listen to you, nigga. You live across the ocean.
Like, I felt like it was so weird, because he didn't have a lot of grace for him, and he even talked about some of the shortcomings in his fathering, his fatherhood, because of his business and what he's doing. So, like, I just didn't really get it, and I ended up watching an interview with RMT. Mm-hmm. So it's like a UK podcast that his dad did an interview with, and he kind of talked about what was going on between. And Like, it was really crazy. So he said he met 21's mom, right, when they was in UK at a party, and apparently she's Muslim, but like she's not like the run of the mill Muslim. She's like a black supremacist Muslim.
Okay.
So she's like one of the ones that like think like that the white people were made in tubes and all that stuff, like as a byproduct of black science, like that kind.
Oh,
like
wow.
white people the devil kind of shit.
Oh, okay.
That's what he said. This is what he said. I don't know if she felt like that moving forward, but that's what he said. And while they were dating, she was discussing moving to America. And then she got pregnant and she still wanted to go to America. And she wanted him to abandon his family. He wasn't with that. So that's what kind of broke them up, even though she was pregnant. So when he's like 5 or 6, that's when they moved to America. And he basically says that just put a complete strain on their relationship because they didn't have a clear communication. They had issues going on because of her moving and stuff like that. And so a lot of the problems that probably stem from him and the mom affected him in 21's relationship because she told him that, this is what he said, of course. He said that every 6 months he was supposed to come back to America. I mean, to the UK. And that didn't happen. Like after he turned like 7 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just a lot of different conflicts. And I understand what a lot of people were saying with him. Was like, bro, why didn't you make an initiative? But it's like, if you're all the way across the world and you and me aren't having clear communication from a long period of time, it's like I'm going in blind. Regardless, if he just was to fly to Atlanta and try to find him at any point, like he's going in blind. He doesn't really know she could at that particular time. And again, as somebody who's experienced different things like this, like you can literally go up, call the person, say, hey, I'm on my way up there. Can we coordinate something? And then no, it doesn't happen. So you've spent 12 hours in a car to not see anybody. Like I've known that to happen. So I can only imagine if I have to travel 7 hours on a plane and I don't have nothing clear. I can imagine just different conversations, like not being, we could be talking for 2 or 3 months and then something happens and now we don't talk for 6 weeks. And then we talk again for 2 more weeks. And then like it just stuff happens. And he said, hey, I tried my end. I had money to try to get him to travel and things of that nature. But me and his mom could never get on the same page with things. And I don't know. I just feel like dads in that instance, they get such a hard rap. Like when you don't appease to the mom, especially early on, you just get shitted on for anything. Like unless you was like Superman, you just get shitted on everything. Did you have anything that you wanted to add about 21 Savage and his relationship in that manner? I mean, you've experienced that before, having a distance.
Yeah, I didn't really put it against my father having that distance though, because first of all, I was only 7 when we reunited, so most of my childhood I didn't even remember him being gone. It wasn't until like years and years into the future when my mom gave me different information that I was like, but like in the moment, I didn't resent him in any way, shape, or form. Being that he experienced this for way longer than I experienced this, I don't know how I would have felt, because you do eventually start to resent your parents, regardless of like the situation. It's like, but this happened to me still. But this is still the bed that I had to lay in, regardless of whoever made the bed. I didn't make the bed. I was a child. I didn't ask for this bed. So this is the bed that I was laying in, and it sucked. So he gets to complain about it. And then I do think he should give his father grace. Immigration, things of that nature.
But this wasn't his dad, not an immigrant. His dad lived in UK. His
No,
mom moved.
but like going back and forth, and that's complicated. It's financially straining when you don't have a good relationship with the other parent. It's even muggier. So I didn't watch the interview, but if he didn't give his father any grace at all, I feel like that's not great.
He gave him what I feel like he thought was enough grace, because he was saying he didn't want to be disrespectful. He did mention that, like he didn't want to be disrespectful. He didn't want to talk out of turn. It's just, I guess in my mind.
But I feel like if that's the case, he still experienced that.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that's still
he
that.
spoke to that.
Yeah, that
My thing is,
regardless
like,
of the why,
my thing
his
is
dad
like this.
wasn't there.
My thing is like this. Like, so I think about it how with me. So I grew up with my pops, right? But most of our time was only really spent in the morning because he worked pretty much afternoon to the night. So I was kind of like how 21 said. 21 said he used to see his dad on the week every other weekend and would spend time with him, and he would be with that family. And then when I got older and I moved to Georgia, I didn't get to see my pops as much because he still had to finish his work requirements so that he could max out his retirement with his company. So it was like 4 years that I wasn't with my pops and all that. But I sit back and I think about, at that time, did I feel certain things? Because I wanted my pops at my basketball games. I wanted my dad to be somewhere I would see him on a daily. But when I go back and think of it as a grown man and look at the things that he did in those 4 years that benefited me in the long run, my mind frame changes to that criticism. Because I remember literally telling my pops, like, oh man, I was upset that you wasn't there around for high school like that. And then I had to come back and tell him, like, I'm sorry that I said that, because that's not true. Because I'm gonna be honest, the things that my dad provided for me, material wise and also just like life wise, was way more valuable than him just being there.
That's crazy.
How's
I
that
feel
crazy?
like
No, talk to that. How's that crazy?
you just said that the material things your father provided for you was more valuable than him being around you. Like that could be taken as fucking crazy.
I don't see that because
you had nice sneakers and stuff. Like you would prefer that over like your dad at your games.
I would prefer. Yeah.
If you had the choice,
The thing is, the games wouldn't have been able to happen if my dad and parents didn't have money, because you had to pay to play sports. You need shoes. You need all this other stuff. I had to work. I wasn't the most athletic kid, so I had to have trainers and workouts and stuff like that. It wasn't.
I think you're thinking about it from your perspective. Specifically.
Yeah, that's why it was my opinion on what I was talking about. My things I understand when I sit back and look at things as a grown man now, I can change my perspective on what I thought. Because as a kid, I thought
it's the opposite for me.
I mean, as a kid, I thought, it would be cool to have my dad be there, because I was looking at above the rim. And above the rim, he's working out with his son every day. But you know what I forgot? That nigga was poor as fuck. That nigga above the rim lived in an apartment with his family. You know what? I lived in a 5-bedroom house every time I had a home. So I'm not going to sit here and tell my dad the time that you spent away from me was not worth it when you gave me an amazing production for that.
It's a complete opposite for me. When I look back and I look at everything when I am in my adulthood, I'm like, you like I didn't resent him in the moment, and then when I got more information, I've gone past it now. I don't resent him anymore. But like when I got more information in my early adulthood, like I did. And then at the same time, now looking back on it, like my parents weren't well-to-do or anything like that. We weren't super rich, but my dad, I was with him all the time. Like I was glued to my dad's hip. He would take me everywhere with him. We lived in a little basement. We never had I always wanted for things.
So that's what I was.
And now looking back on it, like no, I wouldn't have preferred wanting those things. The time that I spent with my father made me who I am today. Like formed my interests, formed my opinions, formed the way I articulate myself.
Well, then I would say,
and that time was like I wouldn't have traded it for like.
But then I wouldn't say that you have
for like baby
for
fat
day.
Jackets.
But I'm saying, but you
no. When I said when I look back on it now,
you say when you look at it now, you have resentment.
No, so that part of it. Well, the part about my dad not being in Haiti with me when I was growing up, like I didn't resent that when I was growing up. When I learned more details about everything later, I did. I don't now. There was a little middle resentment sliver.
So I guess what you're saying is kind of like what I'm saying. Like as you got older, when you looked at everything in its full perspective.
I'm saying it's the opposite for me because my dad was always there and we didn't have money. Yeah. Okay, so I wasn't saying what you were saying. I was saying the complete opposite because
You just say you don't resent him, right?
I was saying that I would have I don't prefer. I would not have preferred if my father was there less and we had more money and he was providing more money for us with and had less time for me. I wouldn't have preferred that.
I mean, it's debatable.
Because the time that I spent with him was so formative for me that I wouldn't have, like, the stuff that I got would not have been more valuable than the time that I spent with him.
No, I and again with me and my pops, most of that happened later on, like again for the 4 years I was in high school. But to me, I understand the valuable nature of it because again, it would just be a lot of things that wouldn't be accessible, and unfortunately, sacrifice is a part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Like
100%.
You're not going to be able to do and have it the way that you want. If you have the time for the kid, most likely you're not going to have the money for the things that they need. It's just a give and take.
Yeah.
So I would rather just, again, the life that I experienced, I can tell just by the people that I know, the people that I've spoke with, that they've never had anything similar to it, that it's a fortunate thing. And like, I'm not going to speak against it when I know what it takes, like, to get to that. So that's the only thing about it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I was going to ask you, like, if the outcome was different, would you have a different feeling? But since you say there isn't any resentment anymore,
no,
there isn't. But
because both of my parents are amazing people who worked their hardest and cared for me as much as they could to get me in the best position as they could. They made a couple slip-ups along the way because they're human. The slip-ups I held on to for a little bit, and then I grew up, and then I realized they were human, and then I let them go.
I mean, and I think that's where I think we kind of come into the same understanding, where it's like, this was for the best you could do, and
you were trying your hardest the entire time, whole time, and that's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, like I said, I didn't feel. I hope that him and 21, if they haven't
reconciled.
Yeah, reconciled. I hope they can definitely do that because it's tough, man. Like, especially nigga was in the post office, yo. Like, that shit, that's not big money. Especially in the UK, it ain't that much land. Ain't much that land to post. It ain't. You know what I'm saying? I mean, mailboxes in the UK.
I don't know.
You know, it's crazy.
That's a random ass question.
Crazy as fuck.